Welcome to the 9642 podcast. This is your host, Mr. Number 9.
And this is the Fool.
This is where me and the Fool give our
Unqualified and unrequested
ramblings on the various issues in the world of sport.
or something like that.
Hello everyone. We are at the end of yet another season, season number 9.
Yeah.
And soon to start season 10 in July with a whole bunch of stuff to talk about what's coming up. But yes, end of season, we have an NBA champion, we have an NFL champion, and we have a Premier League and European champion.
Yes. We've got all the champions.
We've got pretty much all the champions. So, just very briefly, Denver Nuggets winning their first ever NBA title. Great performance by Nikola Jokic, who's another player playing now who's revolutionized the game. Basically, they did it easy.
In the end, yeah.
Very good team. Just that's an interesting way of building a lineup where they've got two big stars, but everybody else is above average role player. And instead of going for a big three that's like unstoppable, they're going for two big guys and a deep bench, and they're well coached. It's been built over time, so Stan Kroenke's teams are doing kind of well. Nuggets have won. They won the Super Bowl in 2022 with Matthew Stafford. And with the LA Rams.
Yeah.
And so now we have Arsenal just finished second, doing pretty well. There is investment, and Arsenal have space in FFP to invest. They're definitely a team that can do well, but we shall talk about that part when we review them.
Yeah.
We also have a cricket world champion, Test cricket world champion, Australia, doing it easy. Yep, doing it easy over India in the end.
Yeah.
Did India lose that game before the toss by not picking Ashwin?
I think so somehow. Like, seems weird for them not picking it.
I think when Nathan Lyons was able to bowl 20 plus overs on the first day to help the pace bowlers rest and reheat, and got 5 wickets in the 4th innings, is when you knew India had made a mistake. Like, why would you ever not pick your best bowler? There are many reasons why India may have lost against New Zealand a couple of years ago in the Test Championship. I don't think you can blame Ashwin for that. There was a batting collapse, and India's batting collapses are not going to be helped by taking away a bowler who's decent at batting in Ashwin. He's not Ravi Jadeja good, but he's not bad.
He's not bad at all, yeah.
For a number 8, that's arguably the best number 8 batsman in the world.
Yeah, no, I'd probably agree with that. At least very close to. Can't think of anybody off the top of my head that would be putting a hit
I think we can all agree that Ravi Jadeja, number 7, best number 7 in the world.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. And in India's lineup, he might have to bat 6, and that's fine too, because Rishabh Pant is injured. But yeah, the middle order kind of threw the game away, and they won. That was not a wicket where the batters should have been 175 for 6 or 7 when they were at the first day.
Yeah.
So India have a lot to think about, and Australia have shown their batters are not invincible. England's bowling lineup, I don't think, is as good as India's, and they had them at trouble today.
Yes.
In the second day of the first Ashes Test. Sure, they recovered very, very well. Usman Khawaja batting really well, but just things like I can't see Travis Head getting a century against if Ashwin's in that lineup. Same with Uzi, as good a player as he is, and David Warner. There's so many left-handers in that lineup. I just don't understand India's thinking about why you would not pick basically the lefty killingest bowler that's ever lefty killed in the game.
It does, yeah. It does beg a belief, really. Yes.
Boggles the mind. Oh, I will, before we move on from the cricket and basketball, I will shout out the Miami Heat, who were the bottom seed in the Eastern Conference. In fact, they
Oh,
were
yeah.
below bottom. They had to be in the play-in tournament, and they went all the way through to the finals. And then they even took one game off the Denver Nuggets. But
First team, well, the only team this season to win at Denver, which is very impressive.
yeah, in the playoffs, yes. So definitely good performance from them. I don't know how well they'll do next season. But they're a team Miami just showed that they make the playoffs. They're dangerous because they're Miami.
Yeah, because they're Miami. Yeah, exactly.
And moving on from those two, we go on to our bread and butter, the Premiership. We're gonna deep dive this. Obviously, Champions League final. Watched that game, and I watched the FA Cup final. Manchester City played against Manchester United. They beat Manchester United quite easily in the end.
Yeah.
And that United were given a penalty and to catch up, but yeah, City it always felt like City were just going to get away with that win, and ditto against Inter Milan. I just don't think Inter played well enough to beat them. They had the right game plan. They just, it's Manchester City.
Yeah. Exactly. It was pretty much this. I thought Inter sort of seemed to have it, and it was okay. But yeah, one moment of brilliance and City's ahead, and suddenly Inter's got to throw everything out. And then City apparently gets all the luck.
Yeah, yeah. And so the Champions League, this is once City beat Arsenal, beat Real Madrid in that 4-0 in that home leg. That's when you knew they were favorites going in, and it was always going to be tough for either AC Milan or Inter Milan. But Inter Milan, I think, quietly had a pretty good season, winning the Coppa Italia. And coming third, and it's a very competitive league, the Serie A. So before we deep dive into the Premier League, because we are gonna deep dive, Napoli, incredible, great performance. They've been threatening for season, and they just ran away with it. Deserved champions, and they played well in the Champions League as well.
Yes.
Lazio coming second, an incredible performance from them as well. Internazionale and AC Milan getting the Champions League spot. Atalanta at number 5. They get there because Juve have been penalized points. And that's going to take effect.
Yeah.
With Roma finishing 6th and Juve getting the Conference League spot. But we'll see what happens in the summer. They may get banned. Maybe Fiorentina will get ahead of them. There's some serious allegations against. There's some serious allegations against Juventus, and I emphasize these are only allegations. But the reason why they're serious is because Juventus are floated in the stock exchange, so. It's one thing to defraud the Serie A or the Italian FA or even UEFA. It's one thing to defraud everybody on the stock market. That's stuff that gets you in jail.
Exactly. That is a completely different thing.
And it gives incredible powers to actual law enforcement, not football law enforcement. So obviously, it's a very serious situation. So Juventus, regardless of the truth, what's happening, they are in trouble because there are, the authorities are still investigating, still alleging a lot of these crimes, and they are going to go to court. And when you're going into court for actual criminal law stuff, that's that you're in trouble as a person, regardless of whether you're innocent or guilty. If they have bothered to take you to court, you're in big trouble.
Yeah, things can be bad.
Yeah,
Working hard, and for better or worse, then there's always public opinion, the court of public opinion after
yes,
that. So, especially for
absolutely.
someone, Juventus is a well-known club, so just being charged carries its own weight. And of course, the
And
police in Italy will know that too. They do take charges. They'll have some pretty serious stuff
yes,
there.
especially given the influence Juventus have in Italian society, not just in
Yeah,
football. The fact that it's gone this far, and Juventus have previous.
yeah,
There was the Calpioli scandal in the early 2000s, so
yeah,
they don't have the benefit of the doubt for a lot of people because previous behavior is something people look at when they judge you in the court of public opinion.
yeah,
Definitely.
yeah,
Um,
definitely.
so, well, we can talk about Juventus a lot, and we will talk about clubs in legal trouble when we get into the Premier League. But yeah, Syria continues to be the best league to watch in Europe, in my opinion. So competitive. Like this is the first season in a while that a team has run away with it in terms with
Yeah.
Napoli doing that.
I see
But
there
if you
was
look,
a.
if you
I also see that there was a final day escape for Verona as well. 3-win,
yeah,
3-1 win over Spezia to just put them to stay up.
no, Verona are relegated
Are they? No, they look 17th on
on
the
goal
table.
difference.
Oh, they're minus 28. Spezia is minus 31. Verona needed that win and the margin as well. That's what my Google table's telling me.
Ooh, you're right. Hellas should be. This table looks wrong to me because they have negative 28 as goal difference, and Spezia have negative 31.
Yeah.
So Spezia should be relegated. So this must be incorrect. You're absolutely right. So Hellas has escaped. Incredible. Former
Yeah.
Serie A champions.
Yeah. Amazing
And
escape. Last day, and yeah, they pretty much needed what they got.
and we've also got Sampdoria being relegated.
Yeah.
Um, the former Cup Winners' Cup win, 1994 UEFA Cup Winners, and yeah, we'll see what happens if Fiorentina manage to get promoted to the seventh place spot, but
Yeah.
Juventus, it's going to be a tough season for them. But I think everybody else, Atalanta, they kind of bottled it. They were pretty much certain to get a top four spot, but they messed it up in the middle of the season. Like Napoli were just so imperious. Just to
Yeah.
think, like second place is 74, and it's very close up to Juve with at 62. So once again, Serie A is still a really close and competitive league.
Yes, exactly. I mean, yeah, you're right. It's 12 points for second to seventh. That's 6 teams within a few games of each other. Crazy how competitive that's been.
Moving on from Italy, we go to La Liga. Before the season, lots of controversies about Barcelona, them pulling all these incredible levers, doing financial, well, black magic, as far as I understand it, really,
Yeah.
to get to somehow manage to put a team out. There were players that couldn't register at the start of the season,
Yeah.
and they've won La Liga by 10 points at the end. I
Oh,
mean,
yes.
Real Madrid managed to win the Super Copa and the Copa del Rey, but that's going to be no consolation to them. Barcelona running away with the league, and of course, they lost in the semi-finals of the Champions League. Um, Atletico finishing third, just missing out, 1 point behind Real Madrid, and Real Sociedad back
Yeah.
in the top four.
Ooh.
The Basque country's second team, finishing 71 points in fourth place. We
Yeah.
have Villarreal at fifth place. Quite sure that they will do well in the Europa League as they tend to do.
Yeah.
Real Betis once again going to the Europa League, and
Yeah.
Osasuna making it the Conference League spot ahead of Athletic Club Bilbao.
Ah,
Great season for Osasuna over there.
that is pretty
Also,
good.
just to point out, Sevilla won the Europa League, so they will be in the Champions League next season. Spain will have 4 teams in the Champions League next season.
5 teams. Yeah.
5 teams, beg your pardon.
Yeah.
Yes, they will have 5 teams in the
So go
Champions League.
Sevilla. Yeah. And go Spain.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Uh,
And 5 pretty
the
decent teams as well, so that would be good.
yeah. So in the 3 relegated clubs, we've got Real Valladolid, Espanyol, and
Hmm.
Elche. So the um, those are the clubs going down. Almeria just missing out. Valencia just missing out on being relegated. They look like they were out,
Yeah, they did.
on and out, but they are not.
Yeah. Got some good points near the end of the season, obviously.
Yeah, yeah. So in the end, La Liga has got some issues with finances. Obviously, this season, lots of controversy about selling commercial rights to um, Clear Lake. Where have we heard this controversy before? I mean, us for New Zealanders would not be familiar at all with what Clear Lake Finance has to do with commercial rights at all, do we?
No, not at all. So maybe we're about to find out a bit more about it.
Maybe. But yeah, well done, Barcelona. In the end,
Yeah.
great season for them. Also, they must be so happy that Real Madrid didn't win anything. And moving on from the from the La Liga to the Bundesliga. Where are you here? A minute. There we go. Bundesliga. The last day drama with Bayern Munich and Borussia Dortmund on same points. Borussia Dortmund just needing to win to guarantee that they would. Sorry, not on the same points. Borussia Dortmund needed to win to guarantee that they got to win the league for the first time in 11 years. And then Bayern won, and they drew. So to Mainz, and everybody got angry with them, and Bayern Munich won the league again. This was your shot, guys. This was your shot.
This was their shot, and they bottled it. Bottled it worse than Arsenal.
Bottled it completely worse than Arsenal, because with Arsenal, at least we knew they hadn't played City.
Yeah.
And once City thrashed them, we were like, oh, okay, City are just better. We're always better.
Yes. That's just
And
the way that
Bayern Munich look like they're gonna get stronger. They got they look like they're gonna sign Kim Min-jae from Napoli and also Kyle Walker from Manchester City. So they're getting better.
They are getting better.
They will probably offload Sadio Mane. But yeah, there's Thomas Tuchel winning a Bundesliga against his old club. I'm sure he doesn't mind that at all.
Gosh.
Third place, RB Leipzig, just just 5 points behind Borussia Dortmund and Bayern Munich, and
Yeah.
FC Union Berlin in 62. The statisticians' favorites because they've overperformed their expected goals and expected points massively
Oh, nice.
to get to a Champions League.
Yeah. Go
Just
then.
ahead of SC Freiburg, Leverkusen coming sixth, and of course not winning the Europa League because obviously they wouldn't. Um, and Eintracht Frankfurt getting that, who were Europa League champions,
Yeah.
getting the Conference League spot for uh, for Germany. We unfortunately, one side of Berlin celebrates Champions League football, the other side get relegated again, and my Hertha Berlin go down. My beloved Schalke 04
I
also
know.
go down,
Oh.
and VfB Stuttgart. Two of those clubs are Stuttgart have recently won the Bundesliga before Bayern started their long run,
Yeah.
and Schalke, obviously very historically successful club in the league. So the Bundesliga, the thing is with the Bundesliga, you can expect clubs to go back up and down because there is not as big a gap between the two Bundesliga and the one Bundesliga,
Yeah.
which means relegation is not as much of a death sentence. Like I don't think they have parachute payments, but it's not that big a gap.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. That's good.
So
Not going to get too badly
they
performance.
they, do, they got relegated a couple of seasons ago, and then they came straight back up again.
Yeah.
Schalke. So their only consolation for Schalke is that Borussia Dortmund didn't win the Bundesliga.
Yes.
Now the Bayern Munich, there's going to be all the talk about this is a Farmers League, Bayern Munich. But if you look out, Bayern Munich have had a few close seasons. It's just everybody else whenever they have a bad season, everybody else seems to not be able to catch up to them. And there is a huge financial disparity between how much Bayern Munich earn compared to the rest of the league, and also how much
Yeah.
Borussia Dortmund earn compared to the rest of the league.
Yeah.
Like, there's a gap between Bayern and Dortmund, and then there's a gap between Dortmund and everybody else.
Yes.
Like a ridiculous gap. But outside of those two clubs, Bundesliga is super competitive,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's super interesting. And like especially the two Bundesliga, it's like one of the most unpredictable leagues in the, and it's a very entertaining league to watch. So. And they are comfortably second at the moment in the coefficient, so they consistently produce clubs that do well in Europe. Like last season, Eintracht Frankfurt won the Europa League, and Bayern obviously consistently do well, as does Borussia Dortmund in the Champions League.
Yeah.
And you tend to have a third Bundesliga club doing pretty good. Like we'll see how Union do, but Leipzig have been good as well
Yeah.
in the Champions League before.
Yes. Leipzig normally perform reasonably well.
Yeah. Now, moving on from the continent, we just maybe do a quick thing. Obviously, PSG won the French league, to nobody's surprise, but also only by 1 point.
Yeah.
The Feyenoord managed to power through and win the Eredivisie. Ajax Amsterdam not quite the same after Erik ten Hag left. PSV Eindhoven finishing second. So Ajax not even in the Champions League spots. Finishing third for the Europa League qualifying round, and you've got two Alkmaar and 20 playing in the Conference League qualification spots. moving and the Portuguese league, Benfica, back where they belong, top of the league, winning 87 points. FC Porto just missing out. Braga, Sporting Braga, and 78, and Sporting CP and 74.
Nice.
So there's no Champions League for Sporting next season.
Oh,
Sporting Club next season. They'll be in the Europa League right off the bat. The um, but things will change after next season. So whoever finishes fourth, I believe, might be in a Champions League qualification spot in
all right.
Portugal.
Well,
Because
that'd be good.
Portugal are very quickly catching up to France and becoming that fifth seed
Yeah.
in European football. And their fifth and sixth place, Aruca and Guimaraes, and I've probably butchered that, so my apologies, are have finished in the Europa spots. Let me just quickly go over League One again, just to check. Second place was Lens, Marseille, and Marseille, who will all go into the Champions League. Lens getting straight in, Marseille in the qualifying. Um, Euro and the Stade Rennais, who finished fourth, will go into the Europa League. And apparently Toulouse are going to the Europa League as well. I think it's probably due to some, like, the old fair play
All right. Yeah.
rules. And fifth place, Lille go into the Conference League. Lille, who won the um, League One a couple of seasons ago,
Yeah.
and now they're in the Conference League. Monaco missing out
Ooh.
on European competition altogether, but that shows once again League One very, very competitive as a
Yes, definitely.
league. Now we won't tease you any longer. English. We go to the Premier League, the final table. Obviously, we'll give everybody a grade. Final table, City, obviously A plus S tier
Yes, dear.
season. Obviously, you've got a treble, you very easily. I will point out when Manchester United got the treble, we actually made the final of the League Cup as well, which the City didn't do.
You can keep your one up on them there. We made the final of the other cup. No. No,
We
yeah,
only
you're right.
made semis.
Only made the semis of it. City. City did, yeah, amazingly well this season. I mean, they spent a lot of the season chasing after Arsenal, but it was always just a two horse race, and in the end, yeah, once
Just
City played Arsenal the second time and just blew them away, it was really only a one horse race.
It was, and I'll point out that it was a very different treble because Manchester United, to remember, Arsenal won the double the season before, and they were
Yeah.
leading most of that season in '99.
Mhm.
Manchester United really just took over in the last few weeks of the season, which was to become a pattern for a lot of Manchester United wins
Yeah.
um, in the Premier under Sir Alex Ferguson. The FA Cup, Arsenal looked like they had that game dead to rights, and then Peter Schmeichel saves a penalty, Ryan Giggs scores a few minutes later, and history is made from there. They didn't play any of their starters in that League Cup final. Ironically, I think if they had known that they were going to win the FA Cup and the league, Sir Alex Ferguson would have probably done that. But it was a very crucial time in the league, and
Yeah.
they couldn't afford to put their bodies through. And obviously, both the semi-final and the final of that Champions League triumph were like, done in the last minute. Juve,
Very good time.
they were behind, a goal behind, went to Turin. Roy Keane gets a yellow, and they came back to win that leg and move on to the finals. And obviously, that famous final where Teddy Sheringham and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer scored goals in the last 2 minutes of the game in injury time to get the team through. City looked absolutely comfortable against Inter, no trouble. Arsenal once again gave them a bit of a challenge, but City had it by the last few weeks. Like nobody was thinking that City weren't gonna win the league for the last maybe month and a half of the season.
Probably less than that. It was only really the last sort of 4 weeks from when they beat
Yeah,
Arsenal. It was always coming down to the game against Arsenal. Arsenal sort of had it, and then Arsenal also bottled a few games here and there to just make it
yeah,
a little easier. Because I think Arsenal at one point had 8, 9 point lead,
yeah,
and then lost like 2 or 3 and drew, or lost 2 and drew 1 or something. Be back into pretty much couldn't put a foot wrong for most of the last
yeah.
quarter of the season.
And obviously the FA Cup final, like, Gundogan scored after 8 seconds, and they never looked back from there.
They really didn't at that point though. I say
Uh,
the Champions League final could have gone differently, but once they went up, that looked as likely.
yeah. But also a very credible season for Arsenal, finishing second, 84 points, one of their highest points totals in recent times. I don't think anyone was expecting Arsenal to challenge for the league at the beginning of the season. We were like, maybe they'll make the top four because they've improved in all the areas they needed to, and Arteta has a system now.
Yeah,
But they've done really well. If they keep backing him and they do get squad depth, which was always going to be Arsenal's problem pretty much when Saliba got injured, that's when they started, as you said, bottling games.
yeah.
So they definitely need to get another centre back, maybe another striker.
Probably
So
yes.
that they have something different. Like this is what the difference between City this season and last season. Like Haaland, right? It's like
Yeah,
we can joke about it all we want. That's it. It's the same with Manchester United in '99 when they won the treble. The difference was they got Dwight York,
yeah. Amazing what a high quality striker does to your team.
and he kind of unlocked Andy Cole, and they both had
Yeah,
like as a partnership. I believe they scored something like 55 goals as
something
a
crazy like
tandem
that.
goal
Yeah,
competition. So they absolutely, and they had Teddy Sheringham and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer coming off the bench to
yeah.
um, do do stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
Which
so
say
very
gave different dimensions and different things
yeah.
to think about as well, which is definitely needed. You need those options to give the defense have to think something. You know? Those
It's like
last 10 minutes or so.
because Sir Alex Ferguson always said that you can't have too many strikers on your team because every striker changes what the other team's facing,
Yeah,
and they have to change their plans in the middle of the game.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, Arsenal definitely with the kind of squad depth they have done really well. I would give them definitely an A, and maybe A plus for the season.
Arsenal did very well. I do love. I have a great quote out of work, and I continue using it, which is Arsenal's perhaps the only team that could overperform on expectations and yet still disappoint their fans. Um,
Yeah.
they found a way to do that. But yeah, I think I have to agree. It has to be an A at least, if not an A plus, because it was such a great season and it's so overperformed. It's just a real pity that the last sort of 4 or 5 weeks
Yeah.
sort of denied them something historic. But
But if you
it's,
compare the, like, apart from Newcastle, you compare them with Manchester United, who at one point looked like they might compete with Arsenal
yeah,
um, in the season. They are not paying as much for their players as Manchester United, and they don't have the resources Manchester. So they've outperformed.
oh, they definitely outperformed.
Granted, Manchester United are in the middle of a rebuild, so it's not comparing apples to oranges. I think, and given Arsenal basically jumped from fifth to second, I don't know if you could give them less than an A plus.
No, yeah,
An A
I
plus
say.
isn't 100%. It's basically means you're in the high 90s in an exam, right?
Oh yeah,
And that's
yes.
probably what they got.
They're definitely mid to high 90s to say. It's just still the fact that they had the league in their hands and they let it slip.
Mm,
Like
yeah.
it was them that did it. They bottled it themselves. So it sort of feels you have to take just the plus bit away just for that. Like it's a very good A, and
I think if it was that Arsenal just lost form and got there, I would be inclined to agree with you as an A, but it's injuries, right? And
oh
that's
yeah,
not the player's fault or the coach's fault. That happened in a World Cup year. And to be fair, City had injuries and lost players and still won. So we're
oh
not.
yeah,
That's why City get S tier for
yes,
me. Like it's incredible, right? Like they're not as good as City. Nobody's saying the same thing. Just like no other club could do what Arsenal's done other than City. Like lose such a key player in defense in that key part of the season and still end up well ahead of Manchester United, who finished third.
yeah,
And at one point, Manchester United looked like they might not even get to fourth place.
yeah. There was a bit there where they were struggling. United, but I guess yeah.
But Arsenal always looked second at least a top two all season.
Oh yeah, no. Top, I say they look top for most of the season. That's just the bit that and I know why the reasons are, and it's like yep, and they can fix them over the next transfer window. Say get the depth, um, and it all sorted out. But sort of looking and go, Arsenal, you had it. You really had it in your hands, and yeah, I know the sayings. You don't win trophies in November. You win them. They get one in
Yeah.
May, and
Yep.
Arsenal proved that. Like they were winning in April, and they still lost it.
Yep. Yep. Anyway, so we just disagree on what type of A, but your
Yeah,
minimum is an A. It's not an A
minimum.
minus for our.
No, it's definitely an A, and it's a like we're giving it percentages. It's probably like 94, so it's a very high A. It's
Yeah.
an A plus minus.
Manchester United finished sixth and got to third.
Yeah,
A debut season for Eric Ten Hag. Got in a bunch of good players who all look like they were contributing. There's lots of work to do with the squad rebuild. What grade do you give them?
they probably have to give them an A as well. They did
Yeah.
really good to say. It's a
Overperformed expectations by a lot. I think United fans
definitely.
would have been happy with fourth, and finishing third is great. But even a top four, we would have been happy with. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
we would have been, we would have given that an A. And also, they managed, beating City and Liverpool in one at home. That's good.
yeah.
They didn't get to do double against us. Can't complain about that.
Can't complain. So yeah, United definitely overperformed. So
And also won the League Cup, so can't.
yeah,
So won a trophy as well. So that's the other. I think that puts it over the top for United. That's at least an A.
at least an A. Yeah, a wonderful
Um,
season for them, really.
Now I've
Maybe
got
not
a
historically, but
football question for you, because obviously we could talk for hours about how to improve Manchester United. If you could only pick one player and would at Manchester United to improve the squad, do you get a striker or a goalkeeper?
I mean, for me, it's still the striker.
Yeah.
De Gea's, I know there's issues there, and that perhaps United's gonna have to start looking for a replacement. But he's still pretty good, and I think you can still get another season or two out of him before things start getting worse, yeah, a lot worse. And the striker area just seems to be a struggle.
I think you bring a gun striker in Manchester, it can cover a lot of flaws for Manchester United. Because I
I
don't
mean,
think the attack, like we over relied on Marcus Rashford. Imagine if
yeah,
like he had somebody who was also a threat on the team with him.
exactly. I mean, you look at it, United only scored 58 goals all season. You have to get
Mm.
down, or Aston Villa scored less at 51, but then Tottenham still scored more, Brentford still scored more, oh, Brentford scored the same, Fulham. So you have to get down to 10th before you can start getting less goals scored. Interesting enough,
Yeah.
even Leicester City got pretty close to United, and they got relegated in terms of goals.
Yeah.
So yeah, it seems to me the problem for United is not in defence, not stopping goals, it's scoring goals. So
Yeah.
take the striker.
Yeah. I think that would be my position as well. Like it looks really obvious. Um,
It's
Moving
yeah,
on. Newcastle United. What grade do you give them, and why is it an A plus?
say an A plus, isn't it? Once again, maybe the only reason to slightly downgrade them is that the first half of the season looks so much better than the second half. But
But they finished fourth. That was all they needed to do. We were
that's
expecting a top four finish from
yeah,
Newcastle. We
they
can't
did.
dock them points for finishing fourth instead of third. Like I think
I
that's a
know,
bit unfair.
I know,
First and second is different.
I know, and I wouldn't take points off them for it really, not like Arsenal. I say, but the only reason is that you could argue that they're the same rationale
Like
that Arsenal's dropped a a half grade. Like they were doing so well and then faded,
it
but then
would
came
have
back. So A plus.
it
I
would
mean, I can't
arguably
knock on
be
it.
it would arguably be an S tier season if they had won the League Cup, but they didn't. They went
Yeah,
so they made a cup final and they finished fourth place. With the squad that they have, like
yeah,
maybe I think they're the second most overperformed team in the league in terms of overperforming their wage bill.
yeah.
So I think A plus for Newcastle.
I'm happy for an A plus. I think.
Liverpool. Mm, if we're judging them by Liverpool standards, I'm sure it's a C plus.
Maybe a
They
B
finished in
minus.
European spots. They should have maybe. I think yeah, C minus maybe for Liverpool because they want to finish at least top four. This has been a while, especially while Klopp is still there. I know they've had injuries, but it's not like United was a perfect team. United were a team they could have caught up to, and Newcastle were also not a perfect team, also a team that you could have caught up to. Like United are not as good defensively as Newcastle are, and one of the worst attacking teams in the top half of the table.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
and
But
they underperformed them. So I think if you were a Liverpool fan, I think I'm being generous with C plus. I think your C minus is probably fair. It's not a
I think
fail, but it's definitely very disappointing season.
well, Liverpool's problem was the first half of the season. Like for a bit there, I think a lot of maybe even to February, they were still outside European spots. They were down the,
Yeah.
they were down there with us. I mean, yeah, I mean, it's perhaps could divide it into two halves and be like, yeah, probably a fail mark for the first
Yeah.
half to nearly 2/3 of the season, and then like actually maybe we'll give you a B for the last third of the season where you actually managed to, salvage something
Yeah.
from what was looking to be quite horrible. I mean, they didn't do a Chelsea, so you have to give them some for that. But yeah, overall, I guess sometimes I'm thinking about it, I feel a little harsh to give them C minus. I know that's a level that's grading them against Liverpool, but um,
I think
yeah,
because
it's a
we're
very
judging
it's
it
a,
by Liverpool standards, right? So it
yeah,
has to be a C
it
minus. We're not
has to be.
judging them as they're not Joe Random team. If this was Wolves finishing fifth, we'd be like, oh yeah, A plus season. But
I
it's
was
not. It's
also
Liverpool.
I was thinking that it was a very competitive top four. Oh, it's very competitive to get into the top four.
They
Sort of,
other
but
than
they were 4 points off though, so
wage
it was,
bill wise, they outspent Arsenal and Newcastle.
yeah. Oh no, they should have been there. I
And they
guess.
have a better coach than either of those teams. Like
Yeah,
with all due respect to Arteta and Newcastle, and they have a better coach than Manchester United as well because Erik ten Hag was only playing his first Premier League season.
yeah, no,
Like
yeah,
we may eventually say Erik ten Hag is a better coach after a few seasons, but he's not now.
no, yeah. No, Liverpool should have done a lot better. They really should have. C minus. Let's keep it there.
The Brighton and Hove Albion. I mean, it's a tumultuous season where they lost their coach. They were up there, but they European football down in the South Coast for Brighton. Also, their South Coast rivals, Southampton, get relegated. Good season for them, I think, all round. A, at least. A.
I was thinking A. Has to be A for
A
Brighton.
for Albion.
A. Well, yeah, say they got European football next year, so that's very good for them. Say it's a bit tumultuous for them, like been a bit weird, but through it all, they've played very good football and have been fairly cemented in that top 6 or 7 for most of the season. I don't think they've ever slipped out of European spots. I can't, like not after the first month or so. So yeah, like it's been a very awesome season. Really happy to give them an
Yeah.
A.
Followed very closely by the Lions of Birmingham, Aston Villa, the Villains. A, at least.
At least an A.
Given what position they were in, and like getting rid of Steven Gerrard, getting Unai Emery in, and he
Yeah.
spread them into the Europa League, into the Conference League. With Emery, they might be the favorites to win the Conference League next season.
Quite possibly, actually, yeah.
That's
Yeah,
a good trophy for them to aim for. They gives them a Europa spot. They also they have a manager who's experienced in Europe. This is why I think Brighton and Hove Albion might be a good shout for the Europa League. Because at some point, I think Liverpool, like if it looks like they're finishing in the top 4, are probably gonna not worry too much about the Europa League.
Yeah.
Because whereas if they're not in the top 4, then yes, they will concentrate on the Europa League. It's definitely necessary to try and win that to get into the Champions League again.
Exactly.
At least you need to you need to be in the top 5 to qualify for the Champions League next season. So Liverpool would have been in the Champions League this season if they had qualified.
Yeah.
Brighton, so Aston Villa, but really, really good season. If Ollie Watkins stays, they're in with another shout to do well next season. They've got a good system for getting good players, but if Ollie leaves for Arsenal, then less likely to win Conference League next season, I think. He might be one more season at Aston Villa to do what he needs to do. But I'm confident that they'll do well next season again. But yeah,
Yes.
good season all around. Can't complain. A for Aston Villa.
A for Aston Villa, you say, is definitely overperforming, definitely an excellent season for them, and yeah, European football for them. So A's all round.
8, Tottenham Hotspur. This is our first F?
Has to be, right?
Not even European football.
Mm-hmm.
Crashing out of the Champions League. Your manager tells your fans to fuck off in a press conference. Yeah.
I think the only thing that Tottenham could say, at least they weren't as bad as Chelsea, and that's the only bright spark to say for them. Like, so it's definitely an F. Like, it's a big fail. Sorry, Spurs. You had a crap season.
F for Tottenham Hotspur.
Yep.
Next up, we have Brentford, the Bees, finishing 9th, best performed club in terms of overperforming their wage bill. Also with off-field issues being dealt with, still doing as well as they have. I think incredible season from the Bees. A-, because they're not in the European spots. They look like they were gonna sneak in. But overperformed their wage bill. Never looked like they were gonna be relegated. Like, they're cementing themselves as being one of those tough clubs in the Premier League that are a permanent fixture there.
Yes, no, that's definitely it. I'd probably give them a B+, if not only just because it's B for the Bees.
Brentford?
B for Brentford, B for the Bees.
Okay, B+.
And as I say, they were looking like they might get European spots. Then I suppose it's only 2 points off at end. Sort of feels like it once again slipped a little bit through their fingers.
Yeah.
they say there was other issues going on. There's all stuff, and it's still performing better and better over the last few seasons. Each season they've got better,
Yep.
and they say they cemented themselves
And
easily
they
within the
lose
Premiership.
players and they bring in new players every season. So that's
Yeah.
an incredibly, like we've seen Southampton are the cautionary tale, and we will get to them. What happens every year when people keep buying you good players and you have to keep finding new players? I don't know how sustainable this Brentford Brighton model is, but
Mm,
it's a
we'll
bit.
see.
We'll see how it goes. But
Yeah.
Brentford, yep, doing really well to finish ninth. Fulham, 10th. I think if you're a newly promoted club and you finish in the top
Yeah.
10, that's a straight A.
Straight A, he can't.
No
They've come straight up.
arguments. Done.
And they were easily in the top 10 as well. Once again, they were floating um, close to European spots at times. I think they may have even been 7th,
Yeah.
6th at different times. So yeah, I mean, they ended up 9 points off Europe. So, end a little bit of gap there, but it's a newly promoted club. They've just come up. Sure, it's Fulham. Not like
Yeah.
they don't have money behind them, but yeah, to come 10th and to beat Chelsea.
Yeah.
A. Easy A.
Next up, we have Crystal Palace. 11th, the traditional spot in B. Can't really say much. Like Roy Hodgson comes in and saves them in the middle of the season.
Yeah.
It's like when your grandfather takes the wheel to drive you through those dangerous passes that he knows like the back of his hands that you're a bit scared to drive through.
Yeah. I think, yeah, a B is good. Say it's there. They've pretty much finished where they finish. I mean,
Every season.
Every season. You could argue that makes it a C because it's, us.
But they can't outspend the clubs above them, really.
I mean, yeah, and they're not quite Brentford level of
Like they don't have a
overperforming.
billionaire owner like Fulham. They don't
Yeah.
have Brentford and Brighton's model.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. They don't have Spurs' money. They don't have Aston Villa's money. They don't have Liverpool's money. They definitely don't have Newcastle, Manchester City, or Manchester United money, or Arsenal money. So they're finishing exactly where you would expect, and they're above Chelsea, so you can't argue with that.
I know. B's fine. B's what they deserve.
Chelsea.
Z?
Is this an F or an F minus?
Can we go Z? Is there lower marks? What's our lowest mark? I said one thing about Tottenham's season is they finished above Chelsea. The only thing about Chelsea's season is we didn't get relegated. And there was a
let's
moment there
reevaluate this then. Tottenham's not an F, it's a D plus. They failed, but there's stuff there. They at least played. They just missed out on the European spots, right?
Yeah.
Chelsea is an F.
Chelsea's an easy F.
It's just F minus or F?
F minus. G H I.
Given their money, given the spend and the wage bill and where they ended up,
it's ridiculous. It really is. You said you could spend a long time talking about Man United. The ridiculousness of Chelsea's season.
We don't even need to talk about how to improve Chelsea. We just need to talk. We could talk about the season they just had for an hour.
Yeah, like how can they do what they did? Like it's just crazy.
And still finished only 12th. Not even in the top 10.
Not even close, really. Like they're what 8 points off Fulham and 10th. Like just.
We were just to show you why we're giving them an F. You and I were arguing about whether they would finish second or third. Yeah. When I re-listened to our, season review.
Exactly. Like, yeah. Talk about underperforming expectations. That's Chelsea. Yeah. And we went through as many coaches as we possibly could as well for really no good reason.
Why bring Frank Lampard back? If you were going to fire Graham Potter, why Frank Lampard?
I don't know. I guess that was just, at least he was a friendly face. He could see us through to the end of the season. But why fire Potter then? Why just be like, got this far with him?
The fans already hate you.
Yeah.
So just keep Potter until and give him another preseason, and if he still sucks at the beginning of next season, sure, fire him. But you I don't get Chelsea. I don't get it.
I
I
don't
don't
get it
understand.
either. I mean, well, the reason for Frankie Lampard was just to try and put the fans are hating
And
us.
which
We'll put a
coach
friendly
wants
face
to
in.
get? And now Pochettino's got a job ahead of him. Like, how
Oh,
do you
big
feel
time.
about Pochettino being your coach?
I'm feeling optimistic a little bit, but the problem's going to be to get through the bloated squad and just cull, and
There is going to be culling because they need
yeah,
to reach a certain level by July the 1st,
yeah.
I believe, or July 31st. I cannot remember. There's a big difference between those two dates.
There
But
is a big
Chelsea are
difference.
going to cut players or going to, I don't think João Felix is getting to stay. He's going to be sent back
No,
to Atletico and things like this.
there's a whole lot of them that will just have to. Oh, it's part of the reason why we're not being able to keep Mason Mount or Kante
Yeah.
or Kovacic. Like, they're all off.
I
think
don't
we
know
really
if
do that.
because if Mount has to go and Mount is said he's not staying. Like, I think 40 million is very fair offer that Manchester United gave for him.
Yeah,
At least he's not going to a Chelsea, like a London rival. Because if he doesn't go to Manchester United, he will be going to another Premier League club. He's
yeah.
probably gonna go to Spurs or Arsenal, which is worse for a Chelsea fan.
Yeah.
Because
But to be fair, we tend to send a lot of people to Arsenal, so
that's true.
especially the last few
Now,
years.
going on from Chelsea, before we dive into the rabbit hole, Wolverhampton Wanderers. At one point, people were picking them for relegation. They look dead set to be relegated before the before the break during
Yeah.
the World Cup. And I said no, Minerola's just too well connected. They'd get players in and they would survive. And I was right.
You were
13th
right.
place for
Go
Wolves.
Wolves. Go Wolves. Oh yeah, they
I
definitely had a very good second half of the season. I mean,
yeah.
compared to last year, it's a pretty poor season.
I think getting Lopetegui in, and I think that if they do refresh the squad and get in a bunch of good players, they have no European football or anything like that to worry about. Wolves could very easily climb the table next season. I think they're in a good position. I give them a B minus.
I think B minus is fair. I mean, yeah, I think that's fair. They had a very poor start to the season, but got to the January transfer window, did what they had to do, did it smartly, and then very easily survived.
Basically, Chelsea, this is what you do. You're taking notes.
Yeah.
Wolves.
Yeah. Go look to see what Wolves. See them? That's how they improved the season.
Next up, West Ham United. So a club that looked like they were going to be relegated. David Moyes has pulled off a great escape, getting them up, and won West Ham's third ever trophy.
Yeah.
This is their second European trophy, because they won the old Cup Winners' Cup back in the 1961, I want to say.
Yeah.
Sorry, no, I might be wrong about that. Don't quote me. Sorry, it might be 71. I think they won the FA Cup in 1970 or something like that. But yeah, whatever else. Third trophy in West Ham's season, winning the Conference League, getting into the Europa League. Well, we can't argue with that. That's an incredible outcome for West Ham.
Yeah.
At least an A.
I'd probably still put them in the B plus because they have underperformed in totality. Like they should. If you can't remember where we put them begin the season, but it wouldn't have been this low. Like we would have expected them. We would expect them to make Europe, not by winning the Conference League, but by being in a European spot. So they get a good mark out of it, but it wasn't in
European
the.
silverware is European silverware, though.
I know. I'm not going to discount that. That's definitely giving them a lot of positives there. Maybe an A minus then. Like it's still like they got a lot of good stuff out of it.
Also,
And
they
it's
beat Mourinho in the final.
they did. You make a good point, and that gave us a wonderful Mourinho tantrum, which is always pleasurable for anyone. So yeah, okay, fine. A minus is fine for them.
Okay, A minus. AFC Bournemouth, A plus. Given
Yeah,
where they were and their wage bill and how they started and how they've ended up.
yeah. Once again, managed to escape the drop. So yeah, stayed up, having come up, stayed up. So yes, I guess yeah, they have to have an A. I think any
Not
club
just stayed
that's
up. They were safe for a few weeks ahead, 15th
yeah,
place. Like they were not one of the people we were thinking were going down in the last 3 weeks of the season.
no, they did
All of
manage to
everybody in the world, including us too, picked them to get relegated. Because FC Bournemouth played this huge playlist of everybody who said they'd go down. We
it's
weren't on there,
sad, but
but which is sad, but yeah.
we'll be louder next season, Bournemouth. Don't worry. But yeah,
It was
I
this
mean yeah,
weird thing, like a couple of weeks before the World Cup started, I was suddenly going, maybe Bournemouth won't get relegated. I'm like, nah, that's weird. Nah,
that's
that's weird.
that's weird, but they did. They managed to stay up.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
I
they
feel
even managed to stay up after losing their last 4 games. How easily up they were.
yeah, exactly. So
Yeah,
I mean, I think A plus definitely. FC
yeah.
Bournemouth. If we're giving FC Bournemouth an A plus, I think we have to give Nottingham Forest an A plus as well.
No, I think
Just-
the 3 clubs that came up, staying up, have to like if you're
I think for
promoted, you
Fulham,
stay up. Stay.
retroactively, we have to give them an A plus
Yeah,
because we're almost sort of penalizing them because they looked so good at some point that we're thinking, oh yeah, 10th is an underperformance, but it's not. It's really good.
oh, it's really really good. But yeah, I think yeah, Fulham, Bournemouth, Nottingham Forest, A's A plus, staying up, not going back down. Definitely, you say Fulham well ahead. Bournemouth wasn't even really in the relegation question. Nottingham Forest dragged themselves out and spent the last month not really in the relegation question.
I think everybody thought Nottingham Forest was going to be relegated, apart from me. Because I
Yeah,
said this in the beginning of the season that they wouldn't be relegated, but they overperformed my expectation because I expected them to be 17th. And they
yes,
finished 16th.
they finished 4 points off the drop. That's yeah, for them.
But yeah, incredible. Bunch of they have a big squad. They'll know who to get rid of, who to keep in, and they've got bodies. They're well placed to remain in the Premier League next season. They don't have a
Yeah,
skinny squad the way Leeds did,
yeah,
and we'll get to Leeds obviously.
yeah.
Um, Moving on, I think this is of the teams that didn't get relegated. The only other one we have to give a failing grade to, D plus, Everton.
Yeah, D plus. Can't really give them a pass mark. Once again, I feel like the only real positive to give Everton is that they managed to not get relegated, um, and that's only just so.
Everton are also in serious trouble off-field issues. We've talked a lot
Mm,
about Manchester City's issues with 115 potential allegations against them, allegations of violating the uh, rules around financial fair play of the Premier League. Everton have 105, so they're not that far behind Manchester City.
no,
So yeah, if it turns out that they could have had points deducted and everything, they might still get relegated, which is why I have to give them a D. The only good thing they did is get Sean Dyche.
yeah, they gave them a fighting chance of staying up. You say if they get points deducted, then that's thing, but maybe that won't come till next season anyway.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Everton, okay, D plus, because they just managed to stay up with Sean Dyche, and who knows what he will do for the squad next season.
Yeah.
Leicester just missed out. I feel bad for Leicester. They have a model, the Leicester way. After COVID, their owners, who King Power owns King Power. Obviously, King Power were not in a good situation where tourism basically didn't exist,
Yeah.
especially in Thailand, and they had to figure they couldn't they had to put their money in one thing. They either had to buy players to try and buy a bit of success, or continue with the Leicester model, and either side is risky. And it's not saying going the other way would have helped them, but they
No.
decided to stick with not. They decided to switch from their Leicester model to the new way to try and make sure they survive in the Premier League. It didn't work out for them. Got relegated, and yeah, unfortunate. Just what, 6 seasons ago they were champions.
Yeah. Now
Now
back down.
they're. I think Leicester fans. I was listening to another podcast. This millennium, Leicester fans have had their club win all three major English trophies,
Wow.
but spent a bunch of it in the second division.
Yeah, yeah. And I expect them to come back very quickly up into the Premiership.
I think so. I think they're well run. They have and they will get the parachute payments.
Mm.
They've got really good facilities, so I think Leicester would come back. I think it's still a D, but D plus for me, Leicester.
Yeah, I'd give them a D plus. It has to be a fail because they got relegated, but it was a fighting relegation as well. Like they really scrapped it through. They just couldn't quite get the results going their way or getting a bit of luck on their side. They gave it a good shot, but yeah, D plus.
Next up, we have um, Leeds United. Yeah, well, feels like the dream is over. There was a bunch of stuff they needed. They got in Sam Allardyce. Yeah, and it's just so. It's so bizarre their last few weeks. Sam Allardyce going on about how he knows way more about football than Klopp
Yeah,
or Guardiola, and Guardiola just going, yeah, obviously he does. Why would you even question it?
yeah. Oh yeah,
It's hilarious, but I think
bit of fun.
Leeds, we all felt they were going to be relegated, and they were one of my picks to be relegated. I thought they would be 19th, but I thought Bournemouth was going to be last, but they weren't.
I think I picked Leeds go down as well, if I remember correctly. I had put them at 18.
Yeah.
I had Bournemouth and Nottingham Forest beneath them. I can't remember.
I think
Definitely
I had
Bournemouth.
Fulham.
Maybe I had Fulham. I definitely had Bournemouth at the bottom. I'm pretty sure I had Leeds at 18th.
But
My
it's incredible that it shows you how tired these teams are post-COVID, because three of the teams that got promoted, didn't get three of the teams that got promoted all stayed. They
Yeah.
didn't get relegated.
Oh yeah, exactly. Which is an amazing feat.
Mm. Fine, but Leeds final grade, I guess D.
D. Yeah.
And Southampton, I'm sorry, if you finish bottom and you lose your bottom well into a few weeks into the season, and you're like 6 points behind at the 19th place,
Yeah.
D minus. You
Even
don't
a
get
F.
an F minus
No?
because you're not Chelsea.
F plus. No, I think yeah. Southampton. I don't know. Even a straight F. That's a fail mark. I know D's are
Yeah.
fails, and we gave Chelsea the bottom bit, but I mean, yeah, Southampton. It's Southampton. They should do better.
Yeah.
And they were easily the worst team. It feels like that it can only give them an F.
And it's just weird the way the club behave, because they have a new ownership group, and they actually were saying things like, oh, maybe it's good we're relegated, we can try our new systems and ideas in the championship, and then let them breathe there before coming up to Premiership. I feel like that is something you say after you get relegated, not
Yeah,
before.
That's something. Yeah,
Um,
that means they were expecting to get relegated. So.
and yeah, they're gonna lose a bunch of players. I can't see people like James Ward-Prowse staying there.
No.
Um, but yeah, I agree with you. F, for them. F plus, because they're still better than Chelsea. But yeah, that was our table. Any final thoughts for you about this season? Like, this has been an epic season of
It has
football.
it has been very epic. I mean, you had the race at the top, which was quite a gap between them and everybody else. And the race at the top and the, the excitement of could Arsenal keep ahead of City or will City overtake them? You know, they're always hot on their heels, and even when it got out to the 8 or 9 points gap, still felt like, ooh, that's a big gap, but City can claw this back, and they did claw it. You had the excitement of, the Champions League spots, third through fifth or sixth. I mean, it's a reasonable gap in the end between United and Newcastle down to Liverpool, but
How
for a
would you
while there, it
feel
was good.
about how would you feel about this being the model going forward? We have a 6-week or even a 5-week winter break,
Could be
where the
interesting.
World Cup was every
Yeah,
season. Obviously,
it,
they're not gonna do that.
I think that's
But if
perhaps
this was how it worked, like instead of like being at a World Cup where everybody's going hard, you are actually doing rest.
I mean, it'd be good, but I feel like 4 or 5 weeks is probably a little too long. Like, I don't see that. I see how it could probably work with a 3 week gap. That might be something they could fly and get through and out, which would be good for the players. Obviously, player welfare needs to be taken into account, and give them a bit more rest and a bit more downtimes are going to help there. But yeah, I, I mean, didn't harm what was happening, right? You got different
Yeah,
bits of the Premiership, throughout the Premiership table. There was different things happening all the way down that gave it a bit
yeah,
of
yeah.
interest and bit. I mean, it was still pretty stratified. Top, next, ranks of each of those levels had something interesting happening. Even if it's just watching Chelsea fail and burn.
Yeah, I think the World Cup definitely had an impact on the Bundesliga, though. I think the
Hmm.
fact that Bayern were this close to losing on the final day, and legitimately, like,
Yeah.
because Dortmund really bottled it.
They bottle it much more.
So that league, obviously, Bayern, pretty much their whole squad were at the World Cup.
Yeah.
And then you've got Syria, because Italy weren't at the World Cup. I think it was a bit more open, and I think Napoli took advantage. And it's interesting that it went the way it did in Spain.
Yeah.
England, we looked at how it would play out, and it kind of worked out the way we thought. Arsenal did have a few injuries in the end that ended up costing them
Yeah.
the league, or at least costing them the chance to properly compete with City in the league.
Yeah.
But overall, great season. Can't wait for the next one.
I really can't.
I think obviously we've reviewed the next season of cricket coming up with
Yeah.
after the Test World Championship being over. We're gonna have all the new sports coming in. We're gonna talk about NFL and the NBA when it starts again, and uh, we'll follow the Test cricket season as it goes along. But we
Yeah.
will definitely continue with the football. Silly season's already starting, and hopefully we will be on time and get our review up before the season starts this time.
We'll see how we go. But yeah, with any hope, we'll get there.
And fingers
Um,
crossed.
I think the only last thing to do, just be, and I don't have a proper able for it. But fantasy football. So have to give
Ooh.
congratulations, Ricky Andrew again, Dewtastic taking out the Standard League over his younger brother, Casey, out on bail. So Dewtastic ended on 89 points. Out on bail,
Yeah.
85 points. Achilles heel back in 73rd, 74, flying without Ings 70th. So in the end, sort of similar to the Premiership, really, with top two quite out in front.
Okay, so fantasy, just looking at the leagues and cups. So 9-6 the Invitational League, as you should. Dewtastic, out in bail. Achilles heel, standard, good season, and flying without Ings. Finishing below Mr. Average again for me.
Yeah, I think I get
And you
to have
just above.
Yeah, I think I get bragging rights for that. I haven't gone look at the
Fair enough.
head for us yet. Take bragging rights just above you. I'll try not to pay attention to the draft league, because that was
The draft league, despite having both Haaland and Rashford in my team, I only finished third. I looked like I was gonna finish top of this league. I was only, in the end, only 6 points behind.
Yeah.
Top place, Kiwi United.
Kiwi United taking that one out on bail. So Mr. Casey Andrews finishes second in both the leagues. That's good work by him. Gives him some overall bragging rights, really. You third. Taylor, Marston, fourth. Dewtastic down in fifth. You Super Pete, sixth. Throw me a freaking bone, seventh. Top four in Conting, eighth. Then myself, Chelsea Full, ninth. Head of 88 GLM. Quite a bit ahead of 88
I think
GLM.
what happened here is I accidentally dropped Haaland for the last few weeks of the season.
Ooh. Oh, that's disappointing.
But that was the part where he wasn't scoring.
Yeah, I would have to look to see how many points you missed out on him. Whether that would have made the difference in any of those games.
I ended up with Ward-Prowse, Rashford, and Haaland, so like I can't complain that I had a crappy team. I even had like Connor Cody and Matty Target.
Yeah, you had some
in my defense. Ruben Neves.
Ward-Prowse. Vardy up front as well. Yeah, they've been picking up some good points, really.
Even Eddie Nketiah, because he covered for Jesus for a long part of the season.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But this is the closest I've come to winning fantasy, so I'll take a third place.
Oh, look at that. You missed in the last week, you missed out by 1 point on beating Dewtastic. Where are you? You missed out on beating Kayla Marston's the week before. That's by a good 9 points. You beaten me though in game week 36. You lost the top four in Conting. There's a few weeks in there. That's a pretty poor end of the season for you, really.
Yeah. Unfortunately, and I had another. It was a draft league I was in, which only had 6 players, and I managed to finish 4th in that league. Mind you, that because it's only 6 players, that league is absolutely stacked with teams have really good players. Like I had Alvarez and Ings as my. I had picked Havertz. Why did I pick Havertz? I had Saka, who had a gun season. So despite that, I still didn't finish that well.
Sure, it all seemed like a good idea at the time.
Yeah. Hey, we'll be back with the draft league, both this and also our fantasy NFL league. Let me just double check what our NFL fantasy. We should have checked this maybe a month ago.
Probably.
But yeah, we'll definitely have a fantasy NFL league as well. But anyway, I think that's all we have time for today.
Yep.
Look forward to seeing you all next time. And yeah, stay safe.
Catch you next time.
Well, that is the end. Thanks for listening all the way through.
If you liked what you heard, we have even more. 9642 Discord and a Buy Me a Coffee.
Pretty sure it's Buy Me a Beer.
Oh yeah, buy me a beer on buymeacoffee.com.
In both these places, you can talk to us, and we may even listen, especially if you do buy a said beer or coffee. I might still be confused.
Yes, we're easily bribed. All links are in the show notes below.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
This is on YouTube.